Welcome to the Talk Spot. This is Marcus, and today I'm joined by Kevin Eastman, one of the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Kevin, thank you for coming on.
A pleasure to be here with you today, and Happy New Year!
Perfect. Well, thank you. How have you been? Have you been up to any new projects or anything like that, or how's work and everything treating you?
Work is spectacular. Actually, there's way too many fun things going on as always. As we get through the end of 2018, on the my main focus for the probably the last 7 years or so now has been working with the awesome Tom Waltz and Bobby Curnow and all the fantastic artists on the ongoing TMNT IDW Universe books, ongoing series books. We're on our official road to 100, which is so exciting. When we started the series and made it all the way to issue 50 with the awesome support of so many incredible fans that we around then we pretty much knew we would love to be by issue 100 if we were lucky enough to get there. And we were all kind of pinching ourselves last year as we were mapping out the 10 issues that lead up to it will be a double size issue for issue 100, but we're doing our homage and tribute and our version of The City at War, which was the final Mirage series that was done, the color version that Peter and I worked on. So this is kind of our tribute and homage to The City at War. So issues 90 through 100 are just going to be one of those, buckle up, put those seatbelts on tight and hold on, because there's some insane and really outrageous stuff coming. Through all of this year, right up until the end. November, I believe, the issue 100 ships. So that's kind of been, it's been such a focus for me and the team that we've been able to work with. That's really, and it continues to be such a joy and so exciting to be part of it. And then you kind of throw into the mix, it's the 35th anniversary of the Turtles as well. Peter and I launched issue 1 back in 1984, in May of '84, back in a little convention in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So it's exciting to be here and still having such a great time, and looking back to all the great memories and adventures of what we did back then, and that we're still able to do that here 35 years later. And as I continue to babble on, I'm excited because May actually marks my the 35th anniversary of the Turtles of this May. It actually marks my return to self-publishing through Kevin Eastman Studios. We did a Kickstarter last year and raised the funds thanks to some incredible fans, 1,200 people that backed our Kickstarter for our Drury Blood project, and the accompanying radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls, the comic that was the additional goal as part of the Kickstarter. But yeah, we raised the money. The trade came out. Everybody's gotten their Kickstarter version of the book, but we're going to, which was a trade that basically covered the first four issues of the series, and then so we're on to self-publishing it, an issue at a time, and that starts in May. It'll be monthly for 12 issues.
So I wanted to ask you, so I guess what has been your involvement with the Turtles over the years? Because I know obviously you created them, and I know that you and Peter created all the initial comic strips. Like what? But I know over time, like you weren't involved with every show. Like you weren't, the head writer, let's say, for example, of, the original TV shows. I know that you were involved, but yeah, what's kind of been your involvement over the years? And has it kind of come and gone where you've been very involved and other times you haven't been involved, or kind of, I guess, what's that look like for you?
Sure, that's a good question. Back in the early days, which would be, the original series, and then how that evolved into the original cartoon shows and movies. Peter and I were pretty much 100% hands-on. We had full approval over every aspect of all things Turtles, whether it be, the smallest detail, whether it be, batting ideas back and forth and then approving final treatments, as well as making notes of final treatments, improving final scripts on all of the 300 cartoon episodes we did starting in 1988. through to the end of that animated run. Through the live action movies, we worked directly with the writers and had full approval over all look and likeness of the costumes, the script, pretty much every aspect of it. We were so happy and so lucky and so fortunate to really have created something that, like the Turtles, that went into those different areas of exploitation. But we were very, very blessed and fortunate to have the ownership position where we could say what could be done and what could not be done with our characters. And that was pretty much from probably, I guess from the first comic book all the way through all the toys. I mean, we used to design a lot of the toys. We had approval over a lot of the toys, the cartoons, the cartoon episodes, characters. We oversaw the production of the Archie series. Pretty much anything anyone saw anywhere in the world with a turtle on it, Peter and I saw it, approved it, or worked on it directly, hands-on. And that would probably go straight through 97, the late 90s. And around the late 90s, I signed over creative control on the Turtles to Peter, which then Peter oversaw and did a beautiful job on what we call the 2000 series, or the Fox Kids series. Although I was still lucky enough to have Turtles in my universe, doing some collections, some books, some autobiographies, things like that, Peter was overseeing and doing a wonderful job on all things Turtles throughout the 2000s before he sold to Viacom in the late 2000s and more or less retired. And then I was invited back by different parts of Viacom, whether it be consulting on the cartoon series, the movies, or more importantly for me, it was I wanted to go to work directly with the folks at IDW on the ongoing Turtle comic. So I helped, develop what that series was going to be, although it was pretty much Tom Waltz's, full and complete brainchild as far as what the IDW comic series would be. But I've been involved in, participating in story plotting, story development, doing a series of graphic novels, one-shots, writing those and drawing those. I've done covers on every single issue. I still do. We do twice monthly mind melts, and what we call, we go over through the different story arcs and what we're doing with the characters and development and story ideas. So it's been a very, not even, and then the Nickelodeon animated series, I did a voice of one of the characters. I wrote a couple episodes, helped to work on the development of Rise. So it's a variety of different levels of more direct involvement to, more being able to sit back and appreciate like what Peter Laird did with the 2000 series and what some of the other people are doing, even with the Nickelodeon cartoons, Cyril Neely's work and the whole team that put that, what we call the 2012 animated series is one of my favorites. And all the young artists that we work with that bring those stories to life for the IDW ongoing series is just mind-blowingly cool to me. These guys are half my age and draw twice as good. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a super lucky position where I can really at times pick and choose the things I can get involved in more deeply, or like I said, more sit back and appreciate what these young guys are doing, young guys and gals are doing, because it's fantastic. So it's quite a joy.
I mean, over the last 35 years, there's been a lot of different takes on the Turtles. I guess you could say, especially, you guys' first comic. Everyone talks about how it had a darker tone than, let's say, the cartoon that started, like you mentioned, the late 80s, early 90s. I guess, which representation of the Turtles do you think captures how you envision them the most? Like, which show or movie do you think, because, even like, for example, the Michael Bay produced Turtle movies even seem quite a bit different from the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show that was just running. Like, yeah, I guess which of those, renditions of the Turtles do you feel like really captures who they are the most?
I would say, right off the bat, I would lean directly towards to the the original black and white series. By far that is the one that started all the ground, set that the foundation for all things to come. Since then, the early cartoons were some of my favorite because it was new, it was fresh, and it was something that we had a lot of direct involvement with, and we knew that we had the black and white series, which is truest to what Peter and I wanted to see as a series. Then we had the we knew specifically going into the animated series, we knew it was being written for a much younger audience. So, our involvement in seeing the creation of that right down to, it was Peter Laird's idea to have different colored bandanas, to have them, so you tell them apart easily, or and things like that. But I would say, out of all the different versions of the Turtles, I would have to point to the very first Turtles movie, which to me was the perfect blend of the black and white comics, the early cartoon shows, and then, the magic of Steve Barron, who directed it, and Jim Henson's costume. I felt it was the perfect movie that was designed and successfully entertained the original fans, the moms and dads who had to take their kids, as well as made it a really fun movie for kids. So I'd say that would be my absolute all-time favorite Turtles rendition. But I have, that aside, I've loved, like I said, the 2000 animated series that Pete oversaw. I even loved I worked directly on the live-action Fox Kids series that came out in '97. That was a lot of fun. The 2007 movie, which was Kevin Monroe directed, that was a fantastic version of the Turtles. I guess now, if I fast forward to what I love about the IDW ongoing series, is that it's probably the closest we'll ever see anyone get to what Peter and I originally did. The comics are intended for an older audience. They've got a lot of edge to them, and they stay, pretty faithful and true to some of those original attitudes and tonal quality of the characters that Peter and I developed. The 2012 series that Nickelodeon did, I thought, was perfect. And then it was a great evolution from, everything that had been done before. And I guess that was probably the advantage of when you look at the IDW ongoing comic series and the Nickelodeon 2012 to 2017 cartoon series. They had the great advantage to pick and choose from multiple Turtle universes that had come before and really come up with a wonderful new platform, a new blending of different ideas and different versions of Turtles to create a unique universe within itself. So I feel like both of those were pretty spectacular versions of the Turtles in recent history. The Michael Bay produced movies were, I guess, like, as a fan, when I look at, we probably had different movies based on different characters or concepts we've liked more, and some we've liked yet less. I felt that the Michael Bay movies, they were designed to have a completely different take on the Turtles, sort of reach out and expand and try to grow the audience. I think that that oftentimes can be a mistake, because you leave behind a lot of your original fans that fell in love with the characters the way that they fell in love with them. That's why, when you see something done in the Marvel, cinematic universe, why it is usually so good and so perfect, because the people that are overseeing those movies and projects have great passion and love for the original concepts. And even though you update it and bring it into a contemporary setting, you still keep faithful and keep true to what was come before. And that's your original fan base and your fans. So I think that there were some missteps. There was some great stuff in them. The second movie was, we were able to see Bebop and Rocksteady for the first time on the big screen, Krang, things like that. So there were some positives in those movies, some good stuff, but there was, I think overall, it's not how I would have done it. I would have tried to do it a bit differently.
Well, one thing I really like about that first movie, like you mentioned, I believe that movie came out the same year that I was born, and yeah, I like the grittiness of that movie, of the first one. And one thing I really appreciate about the time of when the first one came out is that, with all the puppets and the practical suits, like, it looked very real. And I feel like, today, if there was a new Turtle movie that came out, I don't know. I feel like they would all have the turtles be CG, and I don't know. I really don't really like that look, to be honest with you. Like I prefer the suits. I know people can say whatever they want about the suits today, but I like the way that they look. They looked more human to me than Michael Bay's turtles. I mean, the Michael Bay's turtles
Yeah,
didn't look. It didn't even resemble anything that I thought as TMNT.
yeah, no, that was the trouble. I think that they really. I mean, they went after. There was a Mirage uh, series published by an artist named. We did it back in the day when Pete and I were still overseeing all the publishing, so it probably would have been the late '80s. It was late '80s, maybe even early '90s. It was an artist named Michael Zulli did this 3-part series that had the turtles look more like they were actually mutated. And actually, let me start again in that the guy used to do a lot of wildlife illustration. So he took what a real turtle would look like, and if a real turtle was mutated, what it would look like. And they were kind of much bigger and they were much bulkier. And that was the look that the designers for the Michael Bay produced pictures really fell in love with that look. And I felt that, my opinion was, look, that's an interesting take. I liked it when it was originally published, but I felt that that was a very unique universe and unique story into itself. And I think that for the most part, the fans are going to want to see, their turtles more like Jim Henson did them, which is more, like your average teenager, you're, a lovable, someone that they can relate to, if you, a sweeter looking turtle instead of, I said, also, every storyteller in the world knows, whether it's, you're talking, Ellen Ripley or Sarah Connor or, even, Indiana Jones or, it's like you want to see these underdogs. You want to see the, Karate Kid. You want to see the, your hero overcome, incredible odds to really put his or herself out there to save the day. And that's what makes a great story. And that what makes a great hero. And if you're talking about a 6-foot-tall, bulletproof mutant that looks like it can, they had him, and in the beginning of the movie, they had him throwing around big, shipping containers. You kind of go into a zone of, it just, you can't relate to it anymore. But that's, they weren't, again, it wasn't my favorite version of the Turtles. And, hopefully when they do, and I'm sure they will at some point, work on a new, either live action or animated Turtle project, I hope they keep that in mind, because that's what I would like to see. Yeah.
So one of the I guess DVD releases of the Turtles that I'm sure you're familiar with, but it's a lesser known one, is titled "The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Coming Out of Their Shells Tour." Now I only heard about this because Honest Trailers they did a trailer about this. I watched. I forgot how many. It probably came out like 2 years ago or so. Have you know of its existence, right?
Oh my God, yes! It was one of those things that we were approached, and this was probably early '90s. I think that originally came out. I have to check the dates, but what it was these producers from Broadway in New York came up and said basically that they wanted to produce, and they'd produced other traveling kids shows, just for lack of a better reference at the moment, Disney on Ice or, Aladdin Alive, you know what I mean? So they did, Barney tours of things that they had done, these great and fun interactive stage shows for kids, and wanted us to, and pitched us an idea to do a Turtles one. And we were hesitant because it's a tough nut to crack. And, in fact, they did have, numerous problems when they originally began the production with a lot of the singing and dancing and running around for the 90 or the 60 minutes that they did the show. They had actors that had wearing the suits were passing out from the heat, but they wrote what seemed to be a great story with a. It seemed like a very good story with a good message. They wrote some really fun songs, I thought, to go with it. In hindsight, like, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, but it was done and it was out there, and it tore around, I think, for a couple of years before they finally put it to bed. But yeah, it was some pretty silly stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the honest trailer, it looked a little bit like that. Like like I said, I didn't even know that it existed until I was already an adult. But one question, or another question I wanted to ask you was, with the Turtles. I mean, obviously over the years, there's been so many different renditions and takes on them, but they still remain prevalent. I mean, they're obviously still popular, and I'm sure people all the time, they email you or they mail you letters or they ask you questions about the Turtles. I guess, what is it about the Turtles that you feel like has kept them more relevant and active compared to other properties that are 35 years old? I mean, when I think off the top of my head, I mean, when I think of properties that are 35 years old that are still around today, that still have traction like how they used to, I mean, I know the first thing that comes to my mind would be a show like Dragon Ball Z, and that show, I think, came out 84, so it's like maybe, 1 year older than the Turtles. But yeah, I mean, I guess, what do you think it is about the Turtles that just keeps it so endearing and alive? I mean, so many other shows and, properties from the 80s have long since passed away. Maybe they tried to bring them back recently, but, they were basically a dead IP for, over the last 35 years, they were probably a dead IP for 20 of those years.
Yeah, it's surprising to us as well. It really is. I think it's we put it to over the years, but even in the early years, Peter and I, we'd get asked that question in interviews, and Pete and I would kind of scratch our heads a bit and go, well, we kind of wrote something that we thought was fun. We thought it was a fun idea. We wrote the kind of stories, at least initially, and the things we worked on were the kind of stories if we were a young person, or we wrote the kind of stories we would like to read and we thought were entertaining. And I guess whereas we're kind of, big geeks, it definitely resonated in some capacity, I guess. And then, then you look at like, you try to break it down a little bit further. Like, how can something that was, such a silly idea connect with so many different people? And we look at whether it be, kind of the hero aspect where everybody wants to be that hero that saves the day. But at the same time, the thing that's most important, the influences of Spider-Man that we picked up on, which was, Peter Parker just basically wanted to be a normal teenager, but he also had these powers. And there was always things, he was just trying to get through high school, but he'd have to take a break at lunch to fight Dr. Octopus or something, because, otherwise they'd ruin the city or stuff. So that, we sort of had that normal teenager aspect. But I think one of the things I feel like when I point to is, the Turtles are, 4.5 foot green turtles, so they don't represent any specific, race, creed, or color, I guess. So that sort of, that you can have anywhere in the world imagine themselves as Michelangelo or Donatello or Leonardo, because it's stereotype, I guess, for lack of a better term. So it seems like it feels like it's more open to a wider audience base. And there's something just quirky and likable about them. And I think that, when we look back and say, wow, it was really amazing that it worked at all originally, not only as a comic book, but then as a, as a cartoon show, a movie that we, fans embraced it, and kids discovered it, and kids and fans of all ages fell in love with it. And then, that was, as it should have followed the normal course of drifting into oblivion, it just kept going. I mean, we went from the first cartoon show in '88 and the first movies in 1990 all the way through into, the late '90s, where it was not as popular, but it was still had a presence out there that fans were still looking for turtle things. And when it was brought back in the 2000s, it had another successful run on TV. Then late 2000s, an animated picture, and then by the time I feel like when Viacom fully owned and took over the property and started producing the IDW comics and the new Nickelodeon cartoon show and stuff, that it just as easily could have flopped, but they did a great job, which brought a lot of the original fans back, like, oh yes, this is great, it's back, and it's not a bad version of it, but it also we started finding that a whole new audience of kids discovered it on their own. And and I always say, whether you're talking in late 1980s to early 2000 teens, that you can't tell kids, no matter what generation, what's cool and what's not cool. They decide what they like and what they don't like. And for some reason, these new fans that have come in and discovered the Turtles on their own is a head scratcher. It's like, wow, that's amazing that it still resonates, not only with a whole new generation of kids with a million different distractions, from iPads to games to things that they could do, that they still find some time to love their mutant turtles. And that's pretty mind blowing. So it's a tough thing to really pin down to these four things make it successful, but we're just glad that there's something in it that the kids love, and that's a blessing.
So I mean, you've done other work besides the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What have been some of the other projects that you've been involved with? I know you mentioned Drawing Blood earlier, but what are some of the things that you've been doing? I mean, you've done a lot in your career. If you wouldn't mind maybe talking about a couple of those things, maybe real quick.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, in the early 1990s, I bought Heavy Metal Magazine, and am still involved with Heavy Metal Magazine as publisher, and I still do some projects there. But I had went on to do a number of projects with heavy metal. One was kind of a vampire zombie Western that was done in before zombies and vampires were as popular as they were. So I think we started publishing that in the early 2000s. And then I did another big sci-fi. I did that with Simon Bisley, and I did a sci-fi adventure called Melting Pot, and did a bunch of short story collections called Ronin Bebop. I did a kid's book called Underwear, WHERE, Underwear. There's been so many little offshoots. It's like I do short stories here and short stories there, and collect them, and then do a couple of different graphic novels. Worked on a couple great book projects for Tor that was also related to heavy metal. It was called Netherworld, which I did all the illustrations for. But yeah, I would always have something crazy, nutty, and fun, and artistic, and even throughout this whole time period, I still, I did some collections, early collections of historical turtle books. One I did called it was an autobiography, which is a autobiography but done in art form, collecting a lot of the original layouts and behind the scenes stuff that had never been seen before and stuff. So it's I always got something, and looking around my studio right now, and I think there's still 4 or 5 projects that I've got in various notebooks and shelves and stages of development that I'm slowly getting to, a project at a time, and that's probably the most fun at all, because I love my turtles. I love the stories I get to do there. That's the best. And then it's great to take a little break and do something a little different, and stretch your creative muscles a little bit, and then circle back to the turtles again. So.
And you said Drawing Blood, is that available for purchase already for the general population, or is that coming out later this year?
We still have, actually, when we did the Kickstarter, when we printed it, we still have an overstock of There's a one-shot book that's associated with it called The Radically Rearranged Run of Ragdolls about the samurai cats, which is kind of a basis and has an influence on the story. And then Drawing Blood itself is a trade paperback with behind the scenes, which is the first 4 issues of the series that we're going to start self-publishing in floppies starting in May. We have that at KevinEastmanStudios.com. If you go to the website, there's still, I think a couple hundred copies of each floating around from the overprint from when we supplied the Kickstarter supporters their copies. So if they want to get it now, they can go to there, or they can wait till May and follow the series, because it was always intended to be a much longer series. And these first 4 issues sort of kick the door wide open, but it's going to be a maxi series of 12 issues. So the whole complete story goes over 12 issues, but the first 4 you can get at EastmanStudios.com, or wait to hunt it down in your comic book store starting in May. And it'll be monthly.
Wow. Well, definitely. That's all very exciting, Kevin. Definitely. I mean, I want to thank you again for coming on. Yeah, I mean, it really,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure, you must hear this all the time, people that tell you that, they've been a fan of the Turtles forever. And I mean, I have a brother who was born in the mid 80s, so he's a little bit older than I am. And, he was a fan of, the original cartoon Turtles. I remember we had all those VHS tapes. And, I really liked the first movie a lot. And yeah, because I was born a little bit after him. And then, I have a brother who was, born in the late 90s, and, he followed the animated show that you mentioned, the one that came out in the early to mid thousands, the one that was, yeah. So it's very generational or multi-generational. And I feel like that to me is something that's really, truly incredible, is that you were able to create a property, you and Peter, you guys were able to create a property that is so long lasting and enduring. And I think one of the reasons why it's long lasting is because, it just seems like in talking to you the last 2 times that we've spoken, and just through email correspondences, that, you really have an appreciation for the fans, and you really care about the property itself. And I think that really translates in the work, because, it seems like to me, other properties that have been around for a while, they just decide to try a different animation style or something like that. And really, I mean, that's just, I don't know, it's putting a corpse in a different dress, I feel like. But, with you guys, it's active and it's alive. And I mean, I think it's incredible. And I hope that, 35 years from now, the Turtles will be going stronger than ever. And you'll say, I can't believe they've gone on for 70 years. So hopefully that'll happen.
Well, that's oh man, it's been such a blessing already. And like I say, I always, because Courtney and I are just kicking off our tour, our 2019 tour. We do about 15 conventions a year around the States and different parts of the world. And so when I get a chance to interact and talk to the fans, either like we are now or at conventions, I immediately flip it back on them, and that and you guys, that I say I wouldn't have the greatest job in the world. A job that I dreamed about since I was 9 years old, if not for all you awesome fans that have discovered these crazy creations and fell in love with them, and allow me to get up every day and write and draw and tell stories. So it's with great appreciation I have the job that I have, and want to make sure that everybody knows that I know how I got here. And it's such a blessing.
There was one more quick question I wanted to ask you. So I looked up Courtney's, I guess, fandom page. So did she play the voice of April O'Neil in one of the many voices of April O'Neil's? Is that true?
Yeah, it was
okay.
It was great. She did we did a because she had done some acting before, and she's since done. She had a part in Dusk Till Dawn, a Robert Rodriguez TV series, and some other stuff. So she's always kind of got a toe in when she's not being a mom and running our business. But yeah, it was when Nickelodeon invited me and a bunch of other art teams to do a series of 5 to 7 minute animated shorts. I wrote mine with Paul Jenkins, and we co-directed it together. And then when we get down to casting for voices, she went and did a straight up audition and with everybody else that auditioned in New York. I'd like to think she'd like to think, and I would agree that she got the job on her own. And she did. She did such a great job, and she's been really jonesing to do more voiceover work because it's so much fun, and she had a great time being April, and she did just a spectacular job of it. So hopefully there'll be more of that in the future.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, wow, that's that's really cool, actually. I thought that was pretty awesome.
It is. It's really super cool. It's so much fun. Because we work together 24. We're together 24 hours a day. We work together at home in our home offices in the same room. We travel together when we do shows, and we are full on. Mom, dad, husband, wife, partners. We got a 12-year-old son, and with a full schedule, and so we be able to share all aspects of our work together is really. All that and so much more. It's such a blessing. It's fantastic.
Well, that's really great, Kevin. No, that is definitely that's really cool. Also too, so just real quick, that I know because before we go, like you're on Twitter, right? And are you guys on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff?
Yes, and I know it's Eastman86, but I'm not sure of all the handles. But I know you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're posting, between. My updates and our team Eastman that post like sort of, hey, we're going to be in the heat, because I can't keep track of our schedule sometimes. So Courtney's posting and our office is posting and I'm posting and everybody's we're trying to make sure we get all the bases covered. So, they can follow us. If you go to, the main hub for everything is KevinEastmanStudios.com, where you can, not only get schedules, there's a fan club there, behind the scenes, materials, exclusives, signed books, and just know anything and everything about where I am and what I'm doing. And there you join us there, and we're the link to all things Kevin and Turtles and much, much more.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you again, Kevin. I appreciate it so much. I love talking to you, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I look forward to that very much. It was great talking to you, and you can have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. You too, Kevin.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
Bye-bye.